blue carbon ecosystems. So this is you see that mangroves are particularly present in the tropical and subtropical coastlines, and then the other ecosystem they are found in a wide range of the latitudinal bands, not only in the tropical but also in the temperate zone, and also in the some in the Arctic zone also. So now, if we see the distribution, you can find that the mangroves they cover the area of 13.8 and somewhere between 13.8 and 15.2 million hectares. This is a global distribution, by the way. The salt marshes they are between the 2.2 and 40 million hectares. So that's actually the estimation is not very accurate, and that's why the range is quite wide. Uh, then the seagrasses, they're between 17.7 and 40 million hectares again. So you can see that there's a huge opportunity. I can see this as opportunities for generating the carbon credits and conserving the ecosystem, and fighting with the climate change. Uh, the amount of carbon in the coastal ecosystems, you see that the coastal ecosystem they occupy only, as you said, they occupy very small percent of the uh, very small percent of the geographical area, but they possess huge quantity of the carbon present in the oceans. So per unit area is quite great comparatively to the other terrestrial ecosystems. The per unit area is also quite high. So now I'll just mention some things about these ecosystems. What are these ecosystems? The seagrasses they grow very fast. They absorb the climate, the carbon from the sea waters, because the seagrasses they are submerged into the sea, and they absorb the carbon from the seawater for photosynthesis and store them as their biomass. So they have huge amount of carbon present in their sediments. Similarly, the tidal marshes, they contain mostly the herbaceous vegetations. The difference between the salt marshes or tidal marshes and the mangroves is that the tidal marshes or salt marshes, they contain the herbaceous vegetation, and the mangrove, they contain the woody plants. You know that the woody plants, they are the shrubs and the trees. So if you have woody plants in the coastal ecosystem, in the intertidal zone, they will be called as mangroves, because they can withstand large quantities of salinity. No other plants can stand with that type of salinity, which is present in the seawater or the deltaic ecosystem. So the salinity also affects the different types of the terrestrial plants cannot withstand with the salinity present in that, in the estuarine or marine ecosystem. So all these plants they store large amount of carbon inside their soils, and that makes them very much ideal for fighting with the climate change. Now, I just mentioned that I was just mentioning some comparison between the coastal ecosystems and the terrestrial ecosystems. So here is just a glimpse of the comparison. You see that per square, I've mentioned the reference from where I've taken this figure. Uh, you see that the blue carbon, these are the, on the x-axis, there are the different types of ecosystems, the salt marshes, mangroves, and seagrasses, which is the blue carbon, and then the tropical peatland, boreal, tundra, and all other, including the tropical forest and the temperate forest. You just see that the local carbon sequestration. Local carbon means on the ground per square meter. If you compare the carbon stored per square meter of the terrestrial ecosystem with the blue carbon, you can see that there's a huge difference in the range per square meter. The blue carbon goes up to 200 or 250 grams per square meter, and the terrestrial ecosystems, they are like less than 50, and some are even lesser than maybe 20 or 30, 10 or 20 grams of carbon per square meter per year. So the carbon sequestration rate in uh, the carbon sequestration rate in the blue carbon is much higher as compared to the terrestrial ecosystem. This is what I was just telling you about. Now we talk about the mangroves. Uh, you all, can I ask one question? How many of you have seen the mangroves? Anyone seen the mangroves?
I have seen the four species.
Very good with that. Okay, where have you seen them? In Pakistan or somewhere else?
Yep, sir, in Pakistan, Indus Delta.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So mangroves, they are really fascinating ecosystems. They give a wide range of benefits. Those benefits are really incomparable to any other ecosystem because the productive net primary productivity is really high in mangroves. And another very important thing is in context with the climate change, the protection that these mangroves they provide to the coastal populations, to the coastal communities, is really amazing. That because if you try to build that as a gray structure, it would cost so much high. In fact, during the uh, in the tsunami of 2004, which came in, I think, December 2004, the areas which were protected by the mangrove forests, the communities, they really suffered very little losses as compared to the areas which were exposed to the tsunami directly. I just give you one little comparison and then we move forward. Um, we saw that in the Thailand, the number of deaths were approximately 9 or 10,000 people. They died because of the tsunami. And in their neighboring country, the Myanmar, which is the Burma, only 61 people died over there because you know that the coastline of the Myanmar was all protected by the mangroves, and the communities living in the coastal areas, they suffered much lesser deaths as compared to the Thailand, which had that adjacent coastline. Neighboring countries is very much side by side. They lie side by side, but there was a huge difference in the deaths, number of deaths, and the losses that suffered. Uh, so uh, now, what are the mangroves? They are the woody plants, as I just mentioned. These are the shrubs and the trees. They're growing into the intertidal zone of the tropical and subtropical countries. So they are mostly present in the on the seaside and the coastal areas. They are present in the deltaic ecosystem. Most of the mangroves they are found in the deltaic area where the freshwater and sea, where there's a mixture of freshwater and the seawater. So these are the uh, uh, mangroves are present in these ecosystems. The benefits, they have really rich biodiversity, large number of plants and animals. They are found in these ecosystems. The coastal protection from cyclones, as I just mentioned about the tsunami. Just like tsunami, there are other coastal hazards, which are the cyclones. Also, increasing the frequency of the cyclones is increasing every day because of the climate change. We are experiencing larger amounts of cyclones, larger number of cyclones, because you know that these ecosystems, they are actually um, uh, they protect from these uh, uh, oceanic disasters, from the disasters coming from the oceans. You know that because of the climate change, the warming is increasing, and as a result of the increased warming, large amount of energy is being released by the oceans. And uh, uh, so cyclones are um, um, one of the mechanisms that the ocean releases its energy. It's a high amount of heat. Then there are other benefits, which obviously increase the high carbon sequestration rate, and then the high net primary productivity. If you sum up the benefits coming from the mangroves, you'll see that it provides a lot of timber and fuel. The wood density is good, and it serves as the timber and fuel. We also have the livelihoods. People living near the mangrove, they have access to the livelihoods. They have access to the uh, their food, and their subsistence is dependent upon the mangroves and the coastal ecosystems. And most of the mangroves, they provide the food in the ecosystems. So I mean, most of the ecosystem in the marine ecosystem, they get food from the mangroves. So large quantities of the coastal ecosystem, they get food. The animals, they get food from the mangroves. So there's a high productivity in the fish and the shrimps and crabs and all these benefits from the marine ecosystem, from the coastal areas. That is all because of the mangroves. The ecosystem services have been estimated to be US dollars 33,000 to 57,000 per hectare per year. So you can see that different these coastal areas, they have huge benefits from these mangrove ecosystems in terms of the financial and monetary benefits. And these benefits, they really they are very much supportive in their economies, not only in terms of fishing directly, but also the indirect benefits. There are so many other benefits that the communities, they get from these ecosystems, directly or indirectly. So if you compare, if you multiply that by 14 million hectares, the uh, 14 the total amount, it goes to $800 billion per year. The global mangrove cover is 14 million hectares, and that takes very huge amount, gives a huge amount of benefit to the people around the globe. Then the climate regulation, you know that the mangrove forest, you see, this is such a good example we experienced in Karachi, the city of Karachi, from where I belong to. We saw that when we had more amount of forest around the city, we had a lot of mangroves near to the city, right near to the city in the coastal areas. And when in the name of development, those mangroves were cut down, and housing schemes and industries and ports were constructed in those places. And now when the mangroves are absent and they are far away from the city, we are experiencing more a heat wave. We are experiencing much higher temperatures in the summers, and even sometimes the winters are also not quite cold as it used to be in the previous days. So in the past few decades, we are having much warmer summers and much just because the mangroves are now absent in our coastal areas. Then I just told you about the coastal protection. Not going to talk too much detail about that. Just want to mention that the restoring the mangrove will have much economical solutions for the coastal protection as compared to the man-made or human-built structures. Then the water filtration, and then the tourism. We see so many people, they go into the mangrove for recreation, for bird watching, for fishing, and all those activities. So globally there are more than, I think this is a quite underestimated figure, because there are so many areas in the mangrove which are have very good scenic beauty, and they are big attraction for the tourists. And the fisheries, I just told you about that. Mangrove, they provide food to the coastal and the marine ecosystem. They provide food into the fish, shrimps, crabs, and they flourish on them. So this was just a little information about the mangroves and the um, and about the climate change and the carbon trading and the blue carbon. So I hope we will keep in touch in future. I'll mention my email address, and if some of you would like to um, uh, have any questions, or you'd like to connect with me for any other future interactions, I can just mention my email address over here, so that the participants can copy them, and in case if you need them in future. This is my email address, wm@uk.edu.pk. So if any party of the participants, if you have any questions, I'm really happy to answer them. I love interactive sessions. I want people to participate and talk to me about what I am talking about. And I like people to ask questions. I like to ask a lot of questions during my lectures, but unfortunately, in the online webinars, we can't see anyone whom we are talking to. So if anyone please have any questions, you can ask me.
Thank you,
Am I
Dr.
audible?
Vakar. It was a very insightful presentation, and I think I have learned about the blue carbon and mangrove ecosystem. I just want to add a little bit information about the ecosystem services of mangroves. Um, in Pakistan, 1 hectare of a mangrove more or less is generating about $1,100 per hectare per year in terms of services, in terms of protection.
Okay, okay. Do you have any? I'm sure you have done some research on this, or maybe you are quoting somebody's research.
Sir, this is the stats from the IUCN. They have mentioned it in their report.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you, Bajaj. Actually, there are different stats coming for these people, different estimations, different studies. Uh, Globally, previously we had different figures because we had between 2,000 to 10,000 figure dollars per hectare per year. Now the numbers have increased much higher. Just I just mentioned 33,000, $57,000 per hectare, and this is because there are so many indirect benefits which is difficult to quantify. You know, this is a very big field, economic valuation of the natural resources. Mangroves come under that, those natural resources. So economic valuation of the mangroves, it is a very big topic, and there are so many indirect benefits that we do not, which are difficult to estimate, because there are so many things which we cannot find in the market, and we cannot put value to that. We cannot assign any value to that. So the non-market services and the non-market goods, Like you see, the oxygen, it's a non-market good. The mangroves are providing us oxygen. So the mangroves are providing us the climate regulation. So we cannot estimate that we it's very difficult to assign any value to them. You see, so
Exactly,
it's
sir.
a
I
debatable
second
issue.
you. There are many services which are hidden and we have not discovered yet. In terms of because they are doing a huge filtration working around the coast. As you see, there are a lot of pollution and environmental degradation, specifically in terms of sewage dumping, which is being directly dumped without any filtration. Almost 5 or 10% is being treated, and the mangroves around the coast is also filtering this that polluted water. We cannot market them. And the stat I was talking about, I think it was of about 2021 or 22. You are very right, sir. There are many method has been discovered after that, and evaluation and valuation of a mangrove system has been searched a lot.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Any other question? I hope we will. Sorry. Yeah.
There,
Please.
there are some questions in chat box.
I see. Okay. 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 Let me explore the chat box. Okay. Infinix. What are Infinix says that. What are the main threats to the mangrove ecosystem, including climate change, deforestation, and pollution? Okay, okay, there's a very touchy question that you have asked me. Particularly, like in case of my city, where I see the threats with my own eyes, and the deforestation and the land use change. That what I would like to mention the term. The land use change, the change for the converting the forest area into residential area, like we see around the city and DHA and other areas in our city, and similar to the other countries. I believe a lot of mangrove area has been converted into the uh, coastal residential areas and the hotel for commercial activities. The hotels have been built, and then there are other activities such as the industrialization and the port construction, and all these things we see all around the country. Um, they have destroyed so many mangroves. I don't blame these poor people who cut little wood for their homes. There's nothing. There's nothing, because that regenerates again. It's not a big problem. But these things where we see the land use change, and where we see the huge amount of pollution going into the mangrove ecosystem, these are all the big problems that these are main threats which I consider as the biggest threat to the mangrove ecosystem. Okay, we have another question. Uh, Sorry, just give me a second. In Pakistan, okay, Anna Noor, she asks, in Pakistan, what is the status of mangroves? Are they declining or growing? Okay. In the past, if you see the past 50 or 60 years, the mangroves were declining initially because of large scale cutting, because of the reduced freshwater flow. That is also, by the way, one of the threat to the mangrove, the reduced freshwater flow in the Indus Delta. So much of the water is being diverted into the upstream for agriculture, for irrigation purpose, and very little amount of water, practically very little amount of water is allowed into the coastal areas, into the delta, on which the mangrove depend upon. So you know that the ocean doesn't have any nutrients. The nutrients, they come from the terrestrial area, from the continent, terrestrial area. So the nutrients there and the silt that comes from the from the riverine, through the riverine water, through the rivers, the silt that comes through the river, they are affected. That silt is being um, stopped in the dams, in the barrages. All the water is diverted, and practically there is no water coming into the ecosystem, into the delta ecosystem. So as a result, reduced mangrove cover, reduced fisheries were experienced. But in the past 10 years, the Sindh Forest Department, they have done really phenomenal work in regenerating the mangroves in the Indus Delta, and the area is now increasing, uh, which reached up to uh, uh, which reached up to 80,000 hectares in 20 years ago, has now reached up to 250,000 hectares. Not all of them possess dense mangroves currently, but the area is being rehabilitated, and then the mangroves are growing. So some of them already have good dense mangrove cover, and some of them are having smaller size mangroves now, but they are growing, and I hope that in near future the mangrove cover will recover. But as I mentioned earlier, not the mangroves affected by the land use change, the ones destroyed for housing schemes, the ones destroyed for the uh, hotel construction, the port construction, those are not recovered. So that's problem. Yeah. Another question by Nurul, and how many carbon credits can an industry earn by planting mangrove as part of their carbon reduction initiative? Sorry, many countries are currently, um, exploring ways to reduce their emissions and generate carbon credits. And will it be beneficial to our city, Karachi, especially to combat climate change? Okay, good question. There are different projects worldwide coming of the blue carbon projects. Two such projects also have been initiated in Pakistan by the Sindh Forest Department. It was a public-private partnership. They engaged a private company and with them, and they have sold carbon credits worth of $14 million in the first phase. In the previous for the carbon, they sold $14 million carbon in the first phase, and then there are another project coming out in the same Indus Delta in another part of the area, which was not included in the first phase. So this is it is also a blue carbon project. Both these projects are blue carbon projects. That's the Delta Blue Carbon 1, and now the second one is the Delta Blue Carbon 2. So companies now companies can become part of a larger initiative of a larger project, and then they can take their share from that, because the process, it takes a lot of investment. So for a small scale project, it's difficult to make the feasibility uh, of these projects. But the companies can join consortium and become part of the larger project, and then they can sell their carbon credits. But they have to be the owner of the land where they are doing the plantation, or engage the owner of the land. Okay. One more question. Rochelle Galicia. Rochelle Galicia. She says uh, says that I am just curious about how carbon emissions trading or carbon credit is done. Okay, very good question. Because if this is really feasible, I mean, if restoration of mangroves and other ecosystems can provide monetary value, then I am sure that this can entice communities uh, to engage in restoration? That's really a very good question. These projects, they are developed by the developers, project developers. They register themselves into the um, uh, international registries such as the Vera. You can go and search for Vera. They are the international registry for these types of projects. Then they do some estimation according to their standards, and those estimations, they are then submitted in the form of reports, and they are submitted into the international markets, where the international buyers, they who need to buy the project credits, they buy these credits, and some of these credits are in the millions. Like the Sindh Forest Department, they sold 1.5 million carbon credits in the first phase. In the second one, again, I am not sure about the quantity in the second phase, but the first phase I know about, it's a 1.5 billion credits. So similarly, these are, uh, it can vary from case to case, from because the extent of the area, the growth of the trees over there, they vary. Uh, this is how the process takes place. In next maybe in the next session, I'll try to go into detail into of this. I am going into the detail answering this question by Miss Rochelle Galicia. Okay. And by the way, communities are engaged in these types of communities are engaged. There is a standard in which requires the CCB standards, which requires the engagement of the communities, which ensure the safeguard and the benefits that the communities living around these ecosystems, they get benefit with these from these projects. Madiha Rafiq, how to restore mangroves? There are various techniques for restoring the mangroves. You can, uh, like, I think it's a very short time we have for this. We should have a separate session for the question answer session. Mangrove conservation have been carried out mostly on institutional level, like WWF and IUCN are working for this cause in Pakistan. How can we as an individual play a role in conserving these natural uh, filters? You know that we all have to play our part. We all have to uh, do our efforts. Something can be done directly, something can be done indirectly, right? Like the students and the researchers specifically, they can go out into the mangroves, study them, study the threats they are being faced, and then aware the people, aware the authorities, aware the policymakers about them. Raise your voice on the platforms such as the social media platforms, and create awareness. That's important. uh, Sorry, one. Let's see. Usman Daud, but he says mangroves conservation has been. Uh, Now, very little time is left. I think, should we continue with the question, Uruj, or should we wind up the?
Sir, yeah, Dr. Vakar, I think we should answer questions via email.
Yes, maybe by the email or okay. Usman Daud, I have already answered this question. Uh, I have already answered this question.
Okay, sir.
Mangrove conservation has been carried out mostly in how can we? You forgotten the name of uh, Sindh Forest Department. They have done really phenomenal work. Okay, Nisar Ahmed, the future direction priorities, mangrove. Miss Sadaf Gul, Dr. Sadaf Gul, she's asked how many number of mangrove species are there in Pakistan. There are four mangrove species present in Pakistan currently. The Avicennia marina, the Rhizophora mucronata, Syriac tagal, and the Aegiceras corniculatum. So there are four mangrove species that are currently found in Pakistan. Mr. Amir Khan wants to ask, sir, is mangrove protects soil degradation in
Well,
coastal regions? Yes, 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 Mr. Ruch. Yes.
this session is going to be end in few seconds, so please join the link again.
I think we've almost gone through all the questions. Now I'm just experiencing a repetition of the
Yeah.
questions.
Actually,
So,
there are some closing comments for you and for participants as well. So I will request all of you to please rejoin from the link again.